The Age of Expectation, a chapbook for the UBC Slam Poetry Club. Part 3, Beauty and Brokenness. Unwelcome Friend, by Maria-Elena.
I have not known death, and yet I've known grief. A hazy figure, heavy, gluttonous, and less forgiving. Grief does not spare the living. It doesn't eat or disappear, just sits until you start to move. The work is always up to you. It's an appendage, a steel crutch. It's sticky and inflexible, and it always asks too much. But it's no leech, and all it takes it stores, and shifts the weight to one side until you're leaning starboard, prone to tipping and no idea how to hide. It begs escape. But even then, there is no freedom. Like I said, less kind than death. Oh, I've known grief, and he's a heathen. Not a loner, and God forbid I declare friends. For it's not always death that makes the final call. After all, the scythe does not call soundcheck to the stage, does not demand a witness to it all, or beg the living to think of the end, to ponder it, and sometimes will it, to echo the stillness of a tomb, omit the light, or lose all meaning in any dream or blooming birdsong, and collapse desire into empty silence, punctured only by the thickness of white-hot loss. Yes, grief has never come invited in the night, never violent, sure, not one to fight, but still a bore, some basement-dwelling pointless thing, bearing delayed gifts of what you thought was the worst life could bring. No, grief is much worse, because it does not mind its ugly, thick complexion, and asks for attention, a stand-up set, each time. It pokes its ancient nose into every doorway as a ghost it traipses past. Unmercifully, gracelessly, it does not pretend to be a blast. Oh, grief is loud and deafening, and only slightly subtle if you naively think you won't be worth the trouble. It might not drown you, but you'll wade in it at least a while, and occasionally practice swimming on its waves. Shackled to the rocky bed, grief grounds and perseveres, reminds the living that love outlasts the shrouds. When it's not your time yet, your lungs not yet new gills. To be sure, death is a more loyal friend, always waiting. But grief takes up space. It must. It always does. Because you're not yet past your prime, and so the void is not a vacuum that only comes beyond, so trust that death's blinding light is so much worse than grief's unwelcome but persistent verse.
Let Me Be by Schoenfeld.
Let me be a quiet companion. Let's not ruin the silence of our minds. Let's only walk in low creeks, take turns in front, tender feet in the cool mud. Let me be, then, a gentle presence in the soft wind behind you. It is to let the earth forget the sound of the step.
I Know You Blind, by Lian Lo.
How I could recognize you by your touch alone. Twirling fingers reuniting like childhood friends. Tracing skateboard scrapes and guitar-calloused prints. Canyons on my shoulder, carved in the shape of your clever hands. A mobile memory. The refuge on my chest lingers permanent scars, permeating more than skin. The fullness of your weight, inviting my embrace. What are my limbs to do now that they have held you?
Glass Ceramic Bowl, by Kel Ma. It is completely juvenile. The sides of clay clotted with crimson, like entire lipstick tubes callously dragged on washroom stall doors for the janitor to sigh over. Monochrome, odorless, holding a dull clink, refusing to offer a polite, smooth tingle in the manner of wax-coated skin floating on top of bog soil. A swiftlet hammock of gossamer strands and small enough to fit my chin. A name for an imposter, a homemade mayonnaise and chili dip, except that would blot the navy color, an ocean chasm etched with tiny worm bundles, emerging from chinks in oarfish scales. Those antiquated dwellers persisting on spite, or maybe they are eldritch wisps fleeing a Sanday archipelago, overcast by sickly jade fumes, air bubble explosions in the kiln, which melt peacock droplets on enamel petals, unfurling in the same gloom that incense sticks smolder within jars. At the center, there are thin cracks, ice teased apart by the dig of a serrated blade, my waving away of kintsugi technique, for there is no ugliness to gloss in the first place.
Ligne de toi by Eloïse Baril.
L'eau sombre d'un océan immense, de son tumulte ne garde que l'écume. Les mots éclairs, transhument, dans le vaste précipice du sens. Et la tranche affame d'un livre dont le sublime se devine. L'étincelle s'étend ivre de s'enfuir dans l'abîme. Et les rides sur le sable, faites d'un vent qui brosse les dunes assoupies, la note qui habite le temps, du silence qui la suit. Les nervures vitales d'une feuille émeraude, le parfum défaillant, lancinant dans l'air froid, ces lignes de toi qui m'inspirent dans la nuit. From the hustle of the storm, the petrol blue ocean only keeps foam. Words enlighten, wonder, in the great abyss of sense. And the edge, fool's desire, for a deemed sublime book, the spark dives, ecstatically, for it escapes in the night's creases. And the ripples on the sand, shaped by gusts, toying with the dunes, each note adorns time of the silence that ensues. The vital ribs of this emerald leaf, the diffuse scent haunting in the morning air, these lines of you with which the night provides me.
Choke by Lian Lo.
She wraps her fingers around my neck and tells me to breathe. I ask her to squeeze. She is sucking out all of the air in the room. She is sucking out all of the life inside me, and everyone tells me I am just so lucky to have found a girl who provides, who wants to settle down, who wants to take care of me. And maybe it is my fault for needing to be taken care of, for letting her have this power over me. She is always holding things over me, saying, "You are so ungrateful. Think of all I have done for you," like that time she brought me flowers and I didn't ask, or how she is learning to be kinder for me, or how she bought me all my favorite groceries, or how she picks me up from appointments, or how she buys me soup when I am sick and she leaves out everything. How she refuses to read my poetry, or the time she screams at me while I am crying, or the night she wrapped her fingers around my wrists and squeezed. And I just let her. Maybe it is my fault.
Thank you for listening to part 3 of the 3-part chapbook of The Age of Expectation. Listen to the other 2 chapters, or check out our other audio chapbook, Truth to Power, on our YouTube or Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at UBC Slam Poetry. Thank you.